Oh my goodness, I've taken up almost too much time. So, where reformers agree that fractional reserve deposit taking is actually incompatible with the other significant features of the banking system. So you can't have fractional reserves and the lender of last resort and limited liability and the monopoly on legal tender and so on and so on and so on. And also Austrian school reformers tend to agree that an unhampered, fully denationalised market in money would resolve the reserve ratio question. So if you took away all of the privileges and just said money is whatever you want, just sort it out, we probably end up working on 100% reserve ratios. And that was Hayek in the denationalisation of money floated that, and I've heard it many times since. Here are 3 approaches to bank reform. Am I all right for time, Ben? Or do you want me to? Yeah. Here's some. I'm not going to take many questions, I'm afraid. Here are 3 approaches. We could go for 100% reserves on demand deposits, and it attacks some Austrian, Keynesian, monetarist and public choice support. We can go for free banking, take away all privileges, and that leaves us with the rest of the Austrians and what's called hard money monetarists. Or you can continue with fractional reserve central banking, which is all the rest of the Keynesians and the monetarists. And around this debate, you end up hearing things like we've heard recently about gold. It's been floated recently. A chap said, should gold be in the mix? And people got excited. Gold bugs have got excited. If we just put gold in the mix of some new international fiat currency, we'll still have a managed fiat currency with fractional reserves and central banking, and it will still be a disaster. So I'm afraid it's really talking about gold in those terms misses the point. Some practical action. I'm going to go fast and take questions. We must expand the debate. We're doing it. We're on video. Here we are. I've done it. Look at my maiden speech. I started this process in my maiden speech, and I will continue it. Some important forums. We must talk to intellectuals. We must win over the intellectuals if we're going to win this argument. Throughout history, all important major changes in opinion have been led after the allegiance of the intellectuals have been won. We must talk to the public about it so that the public want to vote for it. And we, of course, must talk to politicians so that if they're given the opportunity to bring forward this legislation, if their constituents write to them about it, politicians say, yes, I get it. Fiduciary media in excess of credit expansion, real savings, is a very bad thing. And above all, we must be reasonable. We must not run around being lunatics. We must not be shouting at people. We must be talking about these difficult, complicated technical issues in moderate terms. Douglas Carswell brought forward a bill. I'm skipping past it. If we don't, it'll be worse later. I've talked about the perceived failure of capitalism. Here's what I think is the most important question. Who can be trusted to manage money? Is it politicians and officials, or is it the cooperative actions of billions of people? Now, the reason we're called the Cobden Centre is because Richard Cobden said this. I hold all idea of regulating the currency to be an absurdity. The very terms of regulating the currency and managing the currency I look upon to be an absurdity. The currency should regulate itself. It must be regulated by the trade and commerce of the world. I would neither allow the Bank of England nor any private banks to have what is called the management of the currency. So he said this in the 19th century, and something has happened to take us from a world in which this statesman was able to say that no one should manage the currency, to a world today where saying that is considered a bit mad. We have to get back round so that saying that is the norm, is the mainstream. For me, we don't need state-managed money, we need free market money. The next step down the road of achieving it is to constitutionalise money. That is to take from the banks, in my view, take from the banks the privilege of treating depositors' money as their own. And that's why I'm proud and pleased today to support positive money. And I congratulate you on all your work. I think it's excellent. Can I conclude with these things? Said all of that. Here we are. There's some more information. That's how you spell Huerta de Soto. Can I take some questions, please? Sir, the anarchist.
Right, yeah. What you said.
Oh dear.
I think a lot of what you said is quite lazy, naive, or disingenuous, or from my point of view. You said for welfare warfare state. Now those who want to totally different. A warfare state is basically spending half that money on goods. A welfare state is basically spending half that money on what? It's likely to look pretty worthwhile.
Well, can I answer that point? All right. Go on.
You say about privatisation of profit and socialisation of losses. Privatisation of profit
well, it's a particularly perverse. It's known as corporatism. This is what we talked earlier. It's corporatism. But I consider. Well, let's not have a long categorical argument. Let's not have a taxonomy of statism in this debate.
Most social corporations need talking to you now, or need growing to do that. I don't want to give it to my neighbour. There's no money involved in it. So I would like to take that question, yeah, if you like us to absolutely do this. If you can't talk about it, what me back to and not. Politics is okay. I'm not a big fan of politics. But I don't think the only politics that is happening.
Well, yeah. Okay, so can I have a go now? So I do resent. I mean, it's not a lie. Lie is the wrong word. I'm not lying to you. I'm telling you what I think, and we can have a conversation about it. I'm not lying to you. In terms of a cooperative society, this goes back, and I think it was mentioned earlier, the socialist calculation problem. We cannot have a gift economy of the scale we have today. Well, you may say no, but I'm saying that in my view, we cannot have a gift economy or a planned economy of the scale and complexity that we have today with this many billions of people on this planet without money. It's an argument that needs rehearsing at some length. I refer people to this particular book, which is Socialism, Economic Calculation and Entrepreneurship. In this one, Huerta de Soto goes through at some length the failings in planned economies and generally economies without money. The fact is, it's been long known that you just cannot do it. We have to have money to have prices. We have to have prices to have rational economic calculation. So I just fundamentally disagree with those people who think that you can abolish money and yet have a functioning economy on this scale. Can I go 1, 2, and then Ben stop when you're ready?
Yeah, well, if you guys can handle the time of the
So.
I just want to say I agree with everything you said, basically, but I'm a student at the London School of Economics, and I study economics, and I totally agree with what you're saying about the whole fact that economics turns to positivism, where it's too dedicated to being scientific about stuff that is really too abstract and too normative to practically apply measurements to. So given those constraints, how are we going to win the intellectual debate?
Okay.
How do we get the intellectual
So the question was about London School of Economics and really endorsing this my problem with positivism in economics. We do it by having conversations. This year's Hayek lecture at the London School of Economics was by Jesus Huerta de Soto. My colleague Toby Baxendale sponsored it. He's right there. And it was hugely successful. And following that lecture, we had a private dinner at the London School of Economics with some of the top guys. And we had a really open and frank and robust conversation about these questions. And that's the way we move on. You may have heard we've all heard the phrase paradigm shift. Well, what we need is paradigm shift. I think we need to win 2 battles with mainstream sociologists, including economists. One is we have to win the argument that the origin of interest rates is in people's time preference for consumption, and therefore it's not okay to centrally plan them. And the other thing we have to win is the argument that the methods of the natural sciences are not applicable to social sciences because of the epistemological problem of the social sciences. And if we can win those 2 arguments, which have been going on for 100 years, so let's not get excited it's going to happen this year. If we can win those 2 arguments, then we can win the argument for a proper free market with free market capitalist banking. So, sorry, I forgot who I said was going to be second. I think it was you, wasn't it? So. For me, the key issue is the function which it performs and its legal status. But I think it's an important issue. Do you mind if we park it? But it's an important question we could discuss. Yeah. Well, yeah. Irrespective of who. Yeah. Okay, so to answer that a bit more fully, irrespective of who owns a central bank, and irrespective of the extent to which it's democratically controlled, it still will suffer from the epistemological problem of the social sciences. And that is what I'm saying is it is invalid to think that a central planning organisation can adequately control the interest rate and thereby coordinate society to eliminate the doom cycle. It's just not possible. But to explain it properly, I need to read you all of that. So, sir with the laptop here, you want me to stop?
Yeah.
So you're the last, sir. Mm. Yeah, I understand that the reason it's done in this way is strictly because of IMF rules about governments not being able to just print money and spend it. That's my understanding. Right, but equally, there is also, of course, a problem when the money supply is decreasing. That is, I think everybody's agreed that's a bad thing. But there's a thing, but what's missed is this is aggregation. This is why I detest Keynes so much. It's not valid to just look at the aggregate money supply and say, oh, it's going down, so let's just inject some more money and everything will be all right. Because it distorts the structure of the economy. If whether through credit expansion or QE... Sorry, let me finish the argument. Yeah, it is the lesser of two evils, but it's still an evil and we should stop it. But if you imagine a football that's deflating and you start injecting in money in one place, and just imagine it grows this protuberance. But the protuberance now, we're talking about distortion in the economy. We're talking about some people having more money before some other people because they're closest to this fountain of new money. Whether it's through QE or credit expansion, some people are closest to the source of the new money. And that means they get it first, they spend it first, and it trickles through to others later. So we should not be surprised that the City of London is very wealthy, that when you start QE, house prices start going up in Chiswick and Islington. We shouldn't be surprised that the South East, which is within commutable distance of the City of London, is better off than the North. Because there's a fountain of new money in London, and the people closest to the fountain get the benefit first. So when I say I'm not happy with the wealth distribution in this country, that is what I mean, because the state is giving a set of legal privileges. That set of legal privileges are making some wealthy at the expense of others, and that's not justice. But it's not that is the state positively redistributing wealth and getting it wrong. I'm saying let's not do that anymore. Different system of money and banking, just wealth distribution through free market capitalism. We'll have to stop because Ben has instructed me that we're stopping.